Hey kids, it's Jurassic James, and on this Jurassic James Explains, we're looking at Carcharodontosaurus. So here we are, there they are, older to newer. Now, first thing I want to point out is the name itself. So the name actually means it's the same genus as the great white shark and formerly Megalodon. They've redefined Megalodon as genuses. The species is still Megalodon, the genus has changed. The main thing is that it's because their teeth have serrations very similar to that of great white sharks, and therefore that's their name. But it's, the lizard form of that name. So first and foremost, I'm going to point out my first Carcharodontosaurus is right here, and I remember I was happy to have the figure, but I was disappointed in the figure. Now, so far I made it. It's really, and I'm grateful they made one, but it was so top heavy that it was like it's on his hands, and that no predatory dinosaur to date has conclusive proof of walking on his hands. So that was kind of weird to me. But I get that if you are making these figures, and especially at that time, and you want to make, they're all generally the same kind of body plan. You want to make them different. I get that's my interpretation of what happened here. But overall, I was not super excited with this figure the way it was designed though. But it does have the three fingers in the hand, right? That's the three fingers. The toe is going forward, and the dew claw there. The tail is reasonably sized. But here's the thing about this animal's discovery was when Ernst Stromer, one of my favorite paleontologists of all time, went from Germany to North Africa. He found he was looking for like mammals and things, and he of course known for finding Spinosaurus and so on. But he found some teeth of this guy, hence the name Carcharodontosaurus. Many species like Troodon, their names were based on finding teeth first before finding the actual skeleton. And he was trying to ship the teeth back to describe them. And this was like 1912, he was trying to ship them back to describe them. World War I broke out, so that delayed everything. And then when he finally got the teeth, they were in good condition. Plus, I want to point out that someone else had in the 1920s actually found more of the animal and described it as a megalosaurus. The idea is that megalosaur is the official first dinosaur named by science. In any species that when they first found it earlier on, they weren't really sure what it was. They threw it in what we call a waste taxon. That it's a name that we kind of give everything. Well, it's a predator, it's megalosaurus. We're not sure where it fits, it's megalosaurus. That idea has been waning in paleontology. We're not doing it anymore. Plus, we have more families now to kind of know where everyone fits in. But the idea is that Stromer then went back and wrote about and named Carcharodontosaurus as we know it today. So, unfortunately, during World War II, because Stromer was so anti-Nazi, and many curators from the bombing from the Allies came, and the war came in Germany, they were taking our collections and putting them in the basement. And just like Spinosaurus, unfortunately, Stromer, who was anti-Nazi, and the people who were in charge did not like that. They couldn't touch him. He was from a noble family, but sons were, as I told you in the Spinosaurus video, the sons were killed in the war. They were put in positions that weren't optimal, and his collection was destroyed in World War II. So I want to point out the importance of the world wars, what happened in our country or in the world, but also that in paleontology, like this dinosaur's discovery and understanding was prohibited or slowed down by the wars. So and it kind of sets you kind of think about it, like now we're in a pandemic right now, and the idea that science has happened through chaos before. So there's an example of this. Many years later, Safari came out and they redeemed themselves with this figure here, and I was so excited. I got this figure. I was so happy to have it, and it has all the mythic parts. And the idea is that it has they have very narrow skulls like this. Now the three-fingered hand, palm to palm, the toes pointing forward, dew claw there. I was so excited. I was so happy with this figure because it had all the parts. Now the big deal with Carcharodontosaurus is that it's often called the Cretaceous T-Rex, and the idea behind that is when Paul Sereno and his team went out there and they found more of it. The idea was it's an animal around the same size as T-Rex, and so people assume that it's a Tyrannosaur or a Tyrannosaur cousin. These guys are very distantly related. It's like it's kind of like how a Smilodon, temperature cat, is very beefy, Smilodon, like a bear, but it's not a bear. They're different kind of animals. Same thing here. I'm going to go over that a little bit later on. But this figure here was a really big deal for me. Now, when I went to Boston to speak at my friend Shane's school, I remember I bought him a toy dinosaur, and he already had it. So I asked him, which one did he want? And he found this one. It's Collect A. At the time, for me, a new company. And Collect A usually does very small models. And I like Collect A because they do unusual or not well-known species usually. So I like to fill my ranks with that. But every so often they do a really big figure like this. And this was the biggest Carcharodontosaurus they found. So I remember I ordered it online and sent him his version, and I got mine too. And this guy was great because it is one of the largest predators of all time. Not just predatory dinosaurs of all time on land. and measuring around like 40 feet roughly, estimated 40 feet. The skull is about 5'4", which is taller than like most the women that you know, on average in America at least. So the idea that that's a huge skull and this is a huge animal, and it's thought to be the top predator in North Africa in like Cretaceous period. I'm gonna circle around with that again. And at that point, I was like, okay, I have a pretty interesting gathering of these guys. And then I went to a Target and I saw the Jurassic World one. Now, on the one hand, I was super excited because one, it's like as far as the figure goes, the feet are really big for balancing reasons, obviously. The tail's very small for packaging reasons. The skull is pretty narrow. It's not as narrow as I would have liked it to be because their skulls, I think I posted on social media a picture of an Carcharodontosaurus skull, and it's like very narrow. It's one of their cousins. And again, these guys are, quote, sauropod killers. So the Allosaurus lived in late Jurassic. Allosaurus, this is like their Cretaceous cousin, nephew, or niece kind of thing. They're in the same branch, different branch, same group, different branch or subgroup. And but overall the hands were pretty decent. If you want to be honest, this animal being Tyrannosaurus size, this figure is on average the size of like the Carnotaur, those other medium-sized predators. It really should be the size of the T-Rex of Jurassic World, in my opinion, because it's, they're similar sizes, not contemporaries, but similar sizes. But anyway, so what's the big deal with this guy? Who did he live with? Who were his cousins, right? So the first thing I do is the family tree. So although Allosaurus are thought to be the ancestor of the group, the Carcharodontosaurus are a bigger branch. So this guy was found in North Africa, right? He has a cousin in Portugal called Concavenator, which is also a Jurassic World creature. I have some two over there. What's really unique about him is this hump right here and some tall neural spines. So that's where, why, who knows. But this is a member of that group as well. Another member of the group, of course, that are more well known in South America is Giganotosaurus, known by Rodolfo Correa. So these guys are very similar in appearance, very similar in time period. So as Africa and South America are splitting apart, their ancestors are on both sides of this kind of rift, and they become these two species. Giganotosaurus is a cousin too, called Mapusaurus, which is really well known. My buddy Shane's favorite dinosaur last I checked. And then of course the North American cousin, Carcharodontosaurus, which is one known for his footprint. Some of my earliest videos, their American cousin, which is the Abraham Lincoln reference, if you are a history nerd like me. And again, these are, as far as toys go, some of the most well-known Carcharodontosaurus figures. And that's this lineage. And again, they're these large Allosaur body type ruling the southern hemisphere, basically. As far as environment goes, who does he live with? Who are his cousins and relatives, right? Who are his neighbors, sorry. There is a guy named Spinosaurus, and these guys would have been contemporaries, not to scale. Another animal found in this environment is a sauropod named Paralotitan, which is a titanosaur, would be way bigger than both these guys. There's a iguana, actually, it's not an iguana anymore, it's considered a hadrosaur form, called a Tyrannosaurus, which is also in Jurassic World, Camp Cretaceous. And I saw a toy coming out pretty soon, so I might do a video on that. And then, of course, there's a little Abelisaur called Rugops here. So these guys are known contemporaries. There are other animals from this environment. There's pterosaurs and crocodiles and all kinds of things. But these are, as far as toy goes, these are the bigger guys you see in the same ecology. So if you're playing with them, you're going to be more time accurate. This is what you're looking at. But the big question, of course, then is if Spinosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus were together, would they fight? It's one of those things where I remember earlier on in my career that kids, little boys mainly, asked me if this and that one fought, who would win? If this and that fought, who would win? And many of the time, the animals were from different time periods, different continents, so it's like they wouldn't, But if they were together, who would win? And I was like, hey, man, the individual depends on how strong it is. It's, but we do know that these two are together. Now, one thing to point out, though, is they did overlap for a period, is that Spinosaurus was aquatic. It would live, in and out of the water. Carcharodontosaurus is clearly a land animal, so these two would have had different lifestyles. It's kind of like a lion and a crocodile. They're different lifestyles. They're different kind of predators, right? And even in the Theropod family tree, there are different sections of it. So they're, so they're not competing for the same things. Their designs are very different. But of course, to answer the question of little boys, they would have probably run into each other every now and then, maybe a foolish juvenile, one of the groups. And the answer is I don't know. Spinosaurus was clearly longer. Carcharodontosaurus was probably more like muscular compared to speaking, but the idea is that, I mean, who knows? Until we find fossil evidence, we don't know who would win in a fight. So I'm sorry, kids. It's just, we don't know. We don't. There's no like paleontology like Fight Club. There's that show Jurassic Fight Club, which I don't really, not super excited about. They do base their information on something. I do, the fights they show, there are animals that are contemporaries in the same ecology, and some maybe kill such as bite marks. But overall, this is a lot of added stuff. But these guys would have been may have clashed, and who knows? Maybe I'll do a part 2 of Carcharodontosaurus and say, hey, we found this bite mark, we found this thing, But I want to close with this comparison to T-Rex and the idea that the biggest predators of all time on the dinosaur world are T-Rex, Carcharodontosaurus, Spinosaurus, and Echinosaurus. Sorry, Giganosaurus. Now, Spinosaurus, not the scale here, would have been longer. It's like a crocodile, very long design. It would leave in these two. Now, these two, the difference between these three here is that these are allosaurian body plan. They're probably adapted to kill sauropod long necks as their main prey. Sharp, thin, narrow teeth for slicing, whereas T-Rex has very blunt, thick teeth for biting and crushing. So there is a sauropod in North America. It's called Alamosaurus, but it's mainly eating duckbills and hadrosaurs as his main diet. We can see it in the bite marks, we can see it in their droppings, all that. But the question is, who's the biggest? And these guys, Spinosaurus no doubt is longer, so that's not even a question. These guys, looking at their skulls, because their skulls are made differently. Tyrannosaurus Rex is like a bear. He's very blunt, a very thick animal, whereas these guys are like tigers and lions. They're a different branch of the family tree of theropod, and they're more elongated or slender compared to a T-Rex. He's more powerful with crushing bite, but these guys are more slicing and tearing. So again, you're comparing these like apples and oranges kind of thing, where these animals would have been in very different environments, different adaptations, different prey. But people who would win the fight, we don't know. But the idea is that they are their own kind of grouping and their own design, and this is a different design. And even though Tyrannosaurus Rex may not be the biggest, or at least the longest in this case, it still is a bone-crushing monster that's terrifying. So appreciate that. But not to want to spend too much time off of the title character or title animal. Carcharodontosaurus is a really cool animal in its own right, and it's worth more study. It's gotten more attention in pop culture and documentaries and stuff, and the BBC stuff. Unfortunately, it was held back because where Tyrannosaurus Rex in 1905 was named officially, had a full media support, like King Kong, Jurassic Park, Land Before Time, all these movies, because of the dubiousness of its bones being lost and destroyed in World War II and the bombing, and T-Rex had a head start basically. But now that people realize this animal's almost equal size, it's starting to get more and more traction in the pop culture. So I'm anticipating seeing it more in movies, TVs, and toys. So if that does happen, I will do another video, part 2. That being said, see you later. Thank you very much.